and welcome to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 167, and today's date is September 19th, 2013, and today's title is Please Believe Us, the Economy is Recovering, Really. And we had yesterday, the Fed came out and said they weren't tapering. Well, they are not tapering because all the pieces aren't in place, and if they tapered at this point, we all know what would happen because we understand that the Fed is the market. If they started to taper, we would have seen the stock market plunge. We would have seen Treasury bond rates go through the ceiling. We would have seen sell-off of the Treasury bonds, and at this point, the Fed would not be able to be able to create money to purchase the sell-off of the Treasury bonds, and they would be stuck. So what they've done is they put this off. They put this off until December at this point because there are a couple things that need to be in place. The war with Syria was completely called off for right now because of this plan to dispose of the chemical weapons, and right now the war is not moving forward. Netanyahu is coming over to the U.S. to talk to the president about their next plan, and Netanyahu has already created his red lines for Iran, and we can tell already that something is in the works. And the reason why the Fed is going to wait for something to happen is because they do not want to be blamed for this coming collapse. And what they really want to do is to increase the creation of money or printing of money, whatever you want to call it. I know they don't print money on paper. They punch it into a computer. So whatever, people still call it printing money. Other people call it creation of money. But they really want to increase QE, and if they started to taper right now, it would really be impossible to do. So what they're going to do is they're going to wait for some type of an event to collapse the system. This way, they can all say, and this is what the propaganda, this is what they're doing right now, they are creating the illusion that the economy is getting better at this time. It's almost like if we go back prior to 2000, before the crash, when the Fed came out and said, at this time we're not forecasting a recession. And he said this in the year of 2008, and the crash happened in 2008, and went into 2009. So we can see what is happening. They're always creating the illusion that things are better than they really are because they don't want people to catch on and what's going on. And you have to remember, the Fed is not working for the people. They are a private corporation. They are working for themselves only. They could care less about the economy as long as they can capture all the natural resources, as long as they can capture people's wealth. That is what they're here for. And they're in the Middle East right now, capturing the natural resources, putting all those countries on the U.S. dollar as the reserve currency, and keeping the control, because what they believe is after this collapse in this war, they will restart the system again and put everyone back on the new system, and the whole entire thing will start again, just like it happened after World War II, just like it happened in 1971 when we came off the gold standard. It is the same thing, but this is going to be a lot worse because the bubbles that they are creating and everything going higher and higher and higher, the fall is going to be horrific. And they do not want to be blamed for this, because think about it. If they are blamed for this, they will not be able to implement their new system. So what they need is they need the illusion that everything is fine, we're almost out of it, and they're waiting for this event to occur so they can blame it on Syria, Iran, Russia, or China. This is why they have all this propaganda about cyber attacks. This is why they've been setting up all their bases around the world, encircling China, setting up missile bases. That's why Japan's out there building warships now. That's why India's out there building warships now. And this is why the Russian fleet is in the Mediterranean, because they understand what is happening here. Now, let's get into what is happening right now. And in Cyprus, we understand that in Cyprus there was a bail-in. The next morning, the people woke up, and all of a sudden, they couldn't access their money. Now, will this happen here in the U.S.? Will this happen in the U.K.? Will this happen in Europe? You betcha, because they already put the laws into place to allow this to happen. And I believe, I don't know if Canada has a proposed bill, and I don't know if that passed yet, but when everything is in place, it will happen in each country, because this is what they're planning on. And this was the template. They created the FDIC Bank of England document in December 2012, and they tested it out in Cyprus, and that was like in March or something like that. So we can see what is definitely happening. And when this first happened in Cyprus, they said the capital controls would only be 2 weeks. Well, let me just tell you, the capital controls are still in effect. Right now, Cyprus plans to lift all restrictions on the movement of money. They're going to do this next year of January 2014. And it has taken, I remember when I reported on this, they said 2 weeks, and I said, no, this is going to be much longer. And after 2 weeks, they said, oh, just another couple weeks. And look where we are today. It's going to be 1 year. And why did they do this? Because they were afraid of the people making a bank run and taking out all their money. And the president of Cyprus came out and said that the people were calm, people were very orderly, and he believes after 1 year the capital controls can be released and allow people to start accessing more of their money and have money flow through. Now, something could happen. People might just go and say, you know what, why would you trust these banks anymore that kept your money hostage for 1 year? They might take it out. I know I would. I would take it out as soon as the capital controls were removed. I would run there and take as much as I could out of the banks. And I wouldn't blame anyone for not doing that. Now, we know here in America, they manipulate the calculations for GDP, inflation, and unemployment. Now, in Europe, what they're going to do is they're going to change the deficit calculation to make the economy appear stronger than it is. And it seems like they're doing the same type of thing. This goes on to say, an EU official said Thursday the change to the calculation of the structural deficit would have a very significant positive consequences for Spain because of its labor market structure, and somewhat less for Ireland, Greece, and Portugal. The nature of the change is very technical, changing the methodology of measuring the output gap between potential and structural growth. And they are doing this to make things seem better than they are. And the same thing happened here in the United States. They changed the calculations so everything looks like it's better than it is. And this is how they're creating this illusion that the economies are getting better. And today in Reuters, just to show you, they said that U.S. home sales reached a 6.5-year high in August, and they haven't seen such high levels since February 2007. And what they're not telling you is, again, and I've said this in the past, mortgage applications are plunging right now. New home builders are seeing a decline in traffic. The Fed is not stopping buying these toxic real estate from the banks. They are continually doing it, and they're buying the treasury bonds. at a total of $85 billion a month, and that's what they tell us. It's probably more. The biggest indicator that I see here is that the mortgage companies are laying off thousands of people. Bank of America, 2,200. J.P. Morgan, 2,000 people. Wells Fargo laid off 3,000, and today they announced they're going to lay off another 1,800 in their mortgage section of their business. They are screaming on the top of their lungs, housing is done. People are not borrowing. We understand the hedge fund and the other investors are dumping their multifamily houses for rentals, and they're trying to get out of the market. Yes, Reuters is reporting that the bubble that was created has hit all-time highs back in August. But guess what's happening now? There's always a lag, and now we're going to see sales start to decline. And the Fed understands that this is happening. They understand that they're the market. They understand that people are buying gold and silver. They understand the reason why they're pushing gold and silver down, so people sell their gold and silver. And we see the market is in the red today, even though it hit all-time highs yesterday, and we see gold taking off again. They are only going to let it hit a certain level until they push it down again. And as everyone knows, as now the Fed is continually printing this money or creating the money on a computer system, it is out of control, and they just gave the signal that the economy is a lot worse than they're saying. And I know the BLS is, reported that the jobless claims were a lot less, and then they realized that, 2 states had computer upgrades and that they didn't report, and that's why the numbers had to be adjusted again. And now they're trying to make excuses that they're reporting and the numbers might be going up, and it's a whole big if it's not the weather, it's something else. But let's look at companies that are laying off. We just mentioned that Wells Fargo is going to be laying off another 1,800 people. Virgin Media in the UK, 600 people. American Airlines in Tulsa, 400 people. Boeing in St. Louis, 300 people. BlackBerry, 5,000 people. And, for them to say that things are getting better, they are not. These are manipulated numbers. They manipulate them any way they can, and every time they get caught, they make up another excuse. They changed the calculation since 1994, and if we use the calculation prior to that, unemployment is in the double digits, just like it is in Greece, Cyprus, Italy, France, Portugal, and it's the same here in the U.S. But again, just like in the Great Depression, the illusion is kept up, so no one realizes what's going on until one morning you wake up, it's a Friday, and the market just crashes. And people look around and they say, what the hell just happened here? The market was at 15,000, now it dropped to 9,000, 8,000, 6,000. Everyone's rushing to sell. Treasury bonds are selling off like crazy. And people have no clue what is going on because they believed the market was fine. And you have to remember, the last crash back in 2008, 2009, Americans lost 38% of their wealth at this time. And the amount of foreclosures was so great, and the amount of toxic loans was so great, that the Fed is continually purchasing $45 billion a month and still doing it. This is how you know. And what has it been? It's been 2 years now? This is how bad it is, and still, this is how bad it is. It's worse than they even said, but they're hiding it. And again, if an economy is getting better, the president doesn't have to run around the country and campaign to convince you that something is getting better. Because when something is good, you know it's good. Because guess what? People are employed. People are making good livings. People go out and buy homes. People go out and buy TVs. Retail stores expand. But what are we seeing? Contraction, decline, contraction, layoffs, closing of stores. This is what we see. And again, if things are getting better, you would have these companies mailing packages because people would be buying online. It would be great, just like it was, and UPS, FedEx, United States Postal Service all expanded during this time. But when there's a contraction and people stop spending, online sales, store sales all start to decline. And the Postal Service, and this has also to do with people using email and not using snail mail, and they are running out of money. They're running out of cash. And right now, the United States Postal Service has been in trouble for some time, and it's their losses. 16 of the last 18 quarters they have had a loss, and they are looking to the government again to do something for them. They've already had about 22,000 people. They convinced them to take an early retirement, and they're trying to cut everywhere they can. They even said they were going to get rid of a Saturday delivery. But then again, if they start doing these things, it indicates that there's something wrong. And this is why the U.S. government, President Obama, said, no, we're not going to get rid of Saturday deliveries, because they do not want anyone to realize what is happening. So they need to keep up the appearance that everything is fine. Everything is okay. Now, yesterday I did mention that the Treasury has kept the debt clock frozen now for 4 months, and the reason for that is because the U.S. is broke. They can't pay the interest on the debt. They can't borrow any more money. They hit the debt ceiling, so they're robbing the pensions right now. They're I'll say borrowing the government pensions right now to make up the difference. And Jack Lew says that this is extraordinary measures that they're using to finance the government at this point. And they're making this argument that the government's going to shut down. The Republicans want Obamacare defunded, a clause in there saying that they can defund Obamacare. This is a bunch of BS. They have no choice but to increase spending and increase the debt ceiling so spending can continue. They will never, ever cut anything because they want to get reelected. They don't want to be the ones saying that they cut something, because these are the wrong people to run the government. All of these people are doing the same exact thing. Doesn't matter if they're Republican, Democrat, doesn't make a difference. Nobody has the balls to say, you know what, we're broke. We can't do this anymore. The revenue coming in cannot sustain the debt that we're at. This is impossible. But guess what? No one will do it. They will continue to make the debt go up, and that's all we're going to see. They raised it 14 times before. This will be the 15th, and they will do it with absolutely no problem. Now, Goldman now is pushing back their forecast, saying the taper is going to start in December, and I do believe if they can get everything the way they need it and this war started, we will see the first part of the collapse, late fall, early winter, and I believe this is what they've been trying to set up, and it kind of got pushed back a little bit because nobody was for this war, the people, Congress, and now at this point they need to take it one step further, and we all know what that means. It is a false flag, probably on U.S. soil, to make the people believe that there is a threat. And don't put it past them. People are catching on to these false flags, and they realize what is happening. So they're going to have to come out with something that is pretty darn big to convince everyone that We need to go to war and fight these people. And at this point, they probably will um, use some type of huge nuclear type of explosion or a huge chemical weapons because they've been proving their point. And they keep saying it over and over and over that it was Assad. The UN report, proves it, and it's definitely them, definitely him, and we see it. And I wouldn't put it past them if they do some type of chemical attack here, just to say, look, we told you it was them. Now they're doing it here. And now we need to move on to war. And once the war gets started, it makes it easier for them to do a cyber attack on the financial system, because now they're saying the Syrian Electronic Army and Al Qasim are joining up, which is Iran, and this makes the case that both of these countries, because they hate our freedoms, which is ridiculous, destroyed the financial system of America, and the whole thing was just about to improve, and now look what has happened. And this is how they're trying to set this up right now. And Obama was out there making this ridiculous remark that, raising the debt ceiling does not increase our debt. Well, Mr. Obama, you must be using Common Core math now, because you've been dumbed down, and I believe you think that everyone here is dumbed down from what you're saying here, because when he took office, the debt was 9.8 trillion, and now it's 17 trillion. It's like a family who has a credit card. They max it up, they hit the debt ceiling of the credit card. They go out, they get another credit card. So the first one was 10,000, hit the debt ceiling. They go out, they get a second one, they hit the debt ceiling. Now they have $20,000 worth of debt. They go out, they hit the next debt ceiling of that credit card. Now they have $30,000 worth of debt. What he's saying is absolutely ridiculous. Meanwhile, the IMF chief sees sluggish global growth ahead. The International Monetary Fund chief says she sees subdued global growth ahead, even with signs of recovery in major economies such as the U.S. and Europe. But everywhere else, it's going to be slow, except in U.S. and Europe, which have double-digit unemployment right now. Housing plunging. The UK, people are taking out longer mortgages because they can't afford anything. Australia seeing their unemployment start to rise, but the economy is improving in the U.S. and the Europe, but everywhere else it's going to be a little bit sluggish. Now, I've talked about this before. The government is planning, and they need to do a couple things before this collapse, moves forward here. And they'll try to keep pushing it off as best they can, and they'll continue to manipulate numbers, because we have to remember the fiat system is designed to last 30 to 40 years, and I believe we're at 44 years or so, and they're trying to push this and keep it going a little bit longer, and they understand what is coming. And what they've been doing, and this just didn't start yesterday or 4 years ago, it is very difficult for these people to move their agenda forward because of the Constitution. And it's taken them, and they realize this way, way back, it's taken them years upon years for them to reach this point. And everyone who is sitting there saying, why would they need gun control? Why do they need control of the internet? It makes no sense. Well, they've already taken away your First Amendment, your Fourth Amendment. They're working on the Second Amendment. They've taken it away with the Patriot Act. They've taken it away with the NDAA. They've taken it away with the DHS saying 100 miles from the border is a constitutional free zone. They've already taken care of those rights. They've already set up executive orders that will declare martial law, and the president gets complete control without talking about this with Congress and getting their approval. I believe it's for 1 year, and this is the Emergency Preparedness Act. that he did. And now, with the Second Amendment and the NRA standing in their way, and the pro-gun people, it's very difficult to get certain laws passed. And the way they need to do this is with false flags and events to help these bills get through. They tried with Sandy Hook. They had a gun bill. It got shot down. The president asked the Senate to leave it pending in the Senate. Don't pull it out of the Senate. The UN Arms Treaty is sitting also and pending in the Senate. The CISPA is sitting there in the Senate. They are sitting there for a reason. The president created all the executive orders for CISPA, for the gun bill, and for the UN Arms Treaty because he knows these bills will be passed no matter what because he needs to get them passed. And he already knows this because he set up the executive orders and he's just waiting for the right event to come along where they can push the agenda. And the reason why they need this is they need it before the collapse, during the collapse, and after the collapse. Because before the collapse, what they're most worried about is the people who have nothing, who lost everything, taking their weapons and creating a revolution and going after those people who caused this. During the collapse, because those people who have lost everything, which will be most of everybody, people who can't get food right now, people who can't get supplies, people who become desperate, will again try to overthrow the government. After the collapse, when they believe they're going to restart the entire system on a new currency, whatever they're going to put out there, XYZ, they want the Constitution gone. They want to lead without it, without the First Amendment, without the Fourth Amendment, without the Second Amendment. This is what they've been planning on. This is the new world order that they keep mentioning over and over and over. And how do you make it so guns are bad? How do you make it so people are convinced going forward? You teach the young children. You teach them so future generations lose track of what the real Bill of Rights are. They lose track of why we had guns. They did it in 1913. They removed from the history books the creation of money. They removed the instance of what central bankers are. They removed all of that so we don't understand it. Today, they are teaching the children early that guns are bad. The U.S. government has a program called Project Sentry. They're going around to every school and they're telling the children guns are bad. If you see a gun, report someone. This is how they are doing it. And they need to get these laws into place, which are null and void anyhow because of the Second Amendment. But they believe that if they get these laws in place, it overrides the Second Amendment. And this is what they're doing at this point. And every event, like we just saw the Navy Yard, they are going to use to push their agenda. Bloomberg is already out there pushing gun control again. You know, he has the groups of mayors, for gun control. Pelosi, she's out there saying that the Senate should vote again on the legislation to expand background checks. I'd like the Senate to take another shot so that we can win on it. I don't know what changes they can make. I would like the Senate to vote on these bills again and get them passed. She believes they can get the votes this time because of what has happened. And they're using this, and they'll try their best to get these laws passed. This will bring us one step for this collapse that is coming up. There'll be other false flags, just like the war false flag to get started. The cyber attack, which will automatically have CISPA approved because all corporations and everyone will be like, "Oh my God, we don't want this happen again. I lost all my wealth." And the when this happens in the stock market and goes down, there's bail-ins, accounts are frozen, you can't get your money. People will sit there and Congress will say, yes, we need CISPA now. Yes, we need the executive orders that President Obama already created to support CISPA. Yes, we need to take control of the internet because we just can't have people doing this again. This is what they're doing right now. To keep everyone in line, they're developing new weapons. And this has been out a year ago, but right now they are putting the active denial system. And I don't know if anyone of you have seen this last year. It is a wave machine that hits a crowd of people and heats them up. It makes it feel like you're getting hotter, like you just open up an oven door and heat just hit you, and it makes the crowd disperse. I put a video on this page. So if you click on the title, if you go to the home page, you scroll down a little bit, you click on the title of this episode and scroll down a little bit, you'll see the video. The military has been putting this weapon on boats, on the Coast Guard boats now, on vehicles within the country. And what they can do is if they see someone on like another boat, they can point the weapon there and it'll disorient the people and make them scatter. The same thing with crowds on land. They point the weapon, and you'll see in the video that I think it was a congressman that tested it. He sat there in front and another woman, and then they had a bunch of people throwing sticks and rocks, and they pointed it at them, and it made the people disperse. And they're saying that the technology is a long-range, non-lethal personnel deterring device. They are completely preparing for what is coming. Now, Russia, like I said in my other reports, and I believe I said this in the beginning, they are making deals. China, Russia, they're making deals. Russia is making a deal with Pakistan to help build a natural gas pipeline between Iran and Pakistan. And guess what? They're going to bypass the U.S. dollar. They're saying that they'll help fund this pipeline, and they'll help with the construction of it. And this will completely bypass the U.S. dollar once again, and they're making deals all over the place. Japan right now is building a super surveillance facility to keep an eye on the entire Pacific, especially because we know they're having this dispute with China, and they are building this system to keep an eye all around them, and especially on China and what their movements are. Now, since we've hit the debt ceiling and the government is now accessing the government pension plan to fund everything, the Pentagon is no longer supplying weapons and aid to the rebels in secret and through. They're going to just go out and give them equipment and training now, and they're going to use American people's money to do this, to help the Syrian rebel forces overthrow Assad. Because you have to remember, their agenda has not changed. Their agenda is the same. They don't care where the war starts. They don't care if it starts with Iran or starts with Syria, as long as they get something started and they get into one of these countries so they can get to the other. That's all they care about, is putting the country on the U.S. dollar, taking it over, taking control of the natural resources. This is their entire plan. And we know that Assad is out there saying that it will take over a year and $1 billion to destroy these chemical weapons. Putin is out there saying that this plan might not go through because of so many different things. And we'll get, and Kerry's out there saying that he wants this done in the next week or so. They want the UN to put in a resolution that they can strike if Assad doesn't abide by the rules. They are still pushing this, and they're not going to give up. Now, Russia could be sending a second missile cruiser to the Mediterranean. The Vayrag missile cruiser could join the naval force in the Mediterranean. They already have 10 ships there. They understand what is happening, and they understand that this deal might completely fall apart, or they might create a false flag and get this war started in another way. And this is why they are keeping all of this in place. And you have to remember, with the illusion of the economy and the illusion of this war that, Assad is using these chemical weapons. And we have to also remember Russia invited the UN Security Council back into Syria to prove that Assad did not do this. Because you have to remember, they invited the UN in there on August 20th, a day before the chemical attack. And it makes no sense that someone would invite the UN Security Council in there and then do a chemical attack right in front of them. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But I just wanted to read something, and this definitely pertains to here, because we have to remember back to Iraq, where they said they have weapons of mass destruction. They had satellite photographs. They had different uranium, powders, and they had everything. Joseph Goebbels said, "If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. The lie can be maintained only for such time as the state can shield the people from the political, economic, and/or military consequences of the lie. It thus becomes vitally important for the state to use all of its powers to repress dissent, for the truth is the mortal enemy of the lie, and thus, by extension, the truth is the greatest enemy of the state." And this is what they are doing, continually repeating the lie over and over and over until you believe the lie is truth. But it doesn't matter how many times you repeat a lie is still a lie. The FBI right now is coming out with more warnings, saying that a new malware called BetaBot can kill your antivirus program and steal your data. And they're very worried that this BetaBot can infiltrate the financial banking systems, disable all antivirus and all protections, and move right in for the kill. And this is many different warnings are coming out by the FBI, and they are continually coming out with warnings, warning us of a cyber attack. And we have to remember Janet Napolitano, when she was leaving DHS, didn't say if a cyber attack happens. She said when a cyber attack happens. And we understand that for almost 2 years now, they've been telling us about cyber attacks, warning us, Syria, the Syrian Electronic Army, Al-Qasim, worried about China. Now China has a new cyber force called Hidden Links. And we see all of this coming out, and we understand that something is going to happen. There are warnings all over the place. We have this trucker 3-day no trucking deliveries going to happen in October. We all understand FEMA has been FEMA Region 3, I believe, has been stocking up on a lot of supplies. People are talking about October 1st. We know we have a power grid drill in November. We understand now that they are trying their best to get the war started in the Middle East somehow, some way, and I believe the only way they can do this at this point is with a false flag. And if we do see this happen, we know we are headed down that path, that the collapse will definitely happen during the late fall, early winter, because now they have everything moving into place. If they get the gun bills passed this time, we understand that everything is moving forward and getting into place, and we definitely can see something happening. All I can say is we have a window right now. Everyone, you need to, if you haven't started, or if you have started, I continually, every time I go out, I buy more food, more water, I buy medical supplies, make sure that I have enough bandages, ibuprofen, medicines that I need, toiletries. I make sure I have weapons. Um, if you're uncomfortable with a gun type of weapon, get a knife, get a bow and arrow system, get a crossbow. Uh, any of these things will help. And Make sure you have batteries. Make sure you have some type of generator. You have fuel, because we don't understand, or we don't know what type of an event is going to happen. There's a lot of people talking about EMP blasts. There's a lot of people talking about a cyber attack hitting the power grid. And, all of this we have to be ready for, because when these things happen, when they happen, people are going to react in irrational ways. We've seen it happen in many different areas. I've told the story before, but I have a brother in law who lives up on Long Island. And when the Hurricane Sandy came and hit there, he does not own a weapon. He only has a bat. He lives on the water. And he said the nights were dark. It was pitch black. Most of the people left their residence and went someplace else. He stayed in his home. He heard people walking down the street. He heard windows breaking. People would pull up on a boat right behind their houses, break down the door and windows, go in and take their things. He said all night long, this is what he heard. Think about what would happen if this happened to the power grid. Think about if this happened if there was a state of emergency. People couldn't get food, water. The entire economy collapsed. Just be prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.